Squid Game is back to spin the barrel with a fresh set of horror-filled playground games, but there's some sinister secrets and symbolism hidden in the new season that you probably missed. Yippee-ki-yay movie lovers, in this video I'm revealing the true horror of Season 2 and what the new wall drawings reveal about Season 3 and the new red light green light game. One of Season 2's most nerve-wracking moments is the recruiter's twisted game of Russian roulette, during which he plays the epic aria Nessun Dorma from Puccini's opera Turandot, which has many fascinating parallels with Squid Game and Mr. Kim's fate. In the opera, a prince falls in love with the titular princess, who gives him 3 riddles to solve or he'll be executed. Likewise, the recruiter plays 3 rounds of Russian roulette with Kim and Woo-sok, which they both survive, just like the prince. However, the recruiter then changes the rules, raising the odds of death with 5 bullets in the gun instead of 1. In the opera, the princess also changes the rules of her game, refusing to marry the prince despite him winning. So, the prince sets his own, seemingly crazy challenge. If she discovers his name before dawn, she can have him killed. In Season 2, Gi-hun acts in a similar way to the prince, putting himself at risk of death once again by choosing to play the games once more even though he doesn't have to. In an effort to win the new game, the cruel princess forbids her subjects from sleeping till they find the prince's name, even threatening them with death if they fail. This is reflected in the show, where the search for the recruiter also has very real life or death consequences, and where all the odious recruiter cares about is forcing people to play his game. Look carefully and you'll see that at various points the episode seems to break filmmaking's 180-degree rule, so the characters appear on opposite sides of the screen than they did earlier, making us feel their disorientation. And at the game's climax, this signals a crucial change in the story. Kim realises that because of the shapes he's played, winning or losing is his choice now. So he refuses to participate in the cruel game anymore, deciding instead to sacrifice his own life to save his friend, which mirrors Puccini's opera where, out of love for the prince, a character sacrifices her own life to save his. Plus, Kim's actions contrast starkly with the recruiter, who we learn even shot his own father in the games. The Blue Danube playing over loudspeakers just before the lethal games begin is a terrible harbinger of what's to come, and the incongruously light-hearted music is completely at odds with the deception, death and destruction that awaits the players. Even more sinister is the true horror behind the famous waltz by Johann Strauss Jr., as this and other classical tunes were played over loudspeakers in Nazi concentration camps. As the Nazi regime escalated its use of camps for its genocidal goals, music was used to demoralise, distract and control their victims, with prisoner musicians forced to play during executions or as people were led into gas chambers. Use of the upbeat, playful waltz in Squid Game is also a form of mental torture, disorienting players and breaking their will. Although Squid Game doesn't go as far as genocide, its parallels with camps where prisoners were executed en masse by guards are striking. Like the Nazis' victims, Squid Game's players are thoroughly dehumanized, constantly referred to as trash and animals by those running the games, and with some guards even harvesting parts from dead bodies to sell on the black market and disposing of the bodies in giant crematoriums. By the way, the Blue Danube was also played over loudspeakers in the movie Battle Royale, another dystopian survival story where a group of Japanese students are forced to fight to their death. That story also influenced the development of Squid Game. While it's clear that player number 1, aka the frontman, is trying to mess up his game in the 6-legged pentathlon, you might have missed the deliberately sneaky way he does this. Sure, he makes out he's frustrated for being incredibly bad at the spinning top, even throwing it backwards, but look carefully and you'll notice that each time he fails he's using his right hand, but in reality he's actually left-handed. We've seen him use his left hand to pour and pick up his drink, to use his remote control, to press elevator buttons and even to shoot his brother. Also notice that he switches back to using his left hand when he does eventually throw the top successfully. Now, it's debatable whether he was intentionally trying to get Gi-hun's team killed by running the time down, given how he helps him make the final kick on the jegi just before the clock runs out. But he was at the very least trying to figuratively scare them to death while upping the VIP's entertainment and doubtless also thoroughly enjoying his own sneakiness. Speaking of baddies hiding in plain sight, an early pointer to the true allegiance of the boat captain who betrays Jun-ho is the hidden Squid Game symbols on his top, which we see in the form of circles and diamonds, which are basically double triangles as well as sideways squares. The romantic jazz tune Fly Me to the Moon is a horrifying contrast to the carnage of red light, green light. It's truly disturbing how the frontman relaxes to the music with a whiskey while watching players mown down with machine guns. But hidden in the song's history is an even darker meaning that reveals the awful true nature of the Squid Games and In-oh himself. The song was written by Bart Howard after his publisher begged him to write something with simple lyrics instead of his usual complicated style. So although it begins with grandiose lines about playing among the stars and going to Jupiter and Mars, the singer's much more simple and real intentions are revealed in the lines "in other words," for example, "hold my hand" and "kiss me." Likewise, the frontman makes a grand pretense about running the games as a fair competition, offering participants a potentially life-changing prize. But the much simpler and more real truth is that he's a murderous sociopath who takes pleasure watching people brutally killed while he sits back as if he's watching a fictional TV show. Also, he puts on a grand facade when he pretends to be an ordinary player, but he manipulates them throughout and betrays them right at the end. On top of that, the players are basically like puppets, there to entertain the VIP and games controllers, just like the frontman's animatronic jazz band. The tile game that the recruiter uses to find players also appears during the six-legged pentathlon, and there's a very creepy secret meaning in the game's origins. It's based on a Korean urban legend called Red Tissue, Blue Tissue, which itself is based on a Japanese horror story, where a ghost appears in a public bathroom and offers people red or blue toilet paper. The story has many variations, but those who choose red are generally killed in a gruesome, bloody fashion, while those who choose blue are suffocated to death and turn blue. In other words, although it seems like people have a choice, the end result is basically the same. They die a grisly death, and the fact that players are recruited this way for each new Squid Game emphasises how inevitable it is that almost every player will die. The only way to survive in some versions of the legend is to ignore the ghost or refuse either option and run away. Likewise, in Squid Game, the only way to survive, other than being extremely lucky to win all the games, is to refuse to take the recruiter's bait to start with, or maybe vote X and hope you can leave. But as we see, players are constantly manipulated and the game is rigged. By the way, in an interesting reflection of both the legend and the recruiter's game, Mr. Kim and Woo-sok both wear red and blue clothes. A twisted detail hidden from players last season is back in a new way in Season 2. Remember how all the games were drawn on the dormitory walls, obscured at first by bunk beds but gradually revealed as more players died? Well, in Season 2, as the drawings on the walls reveal themselves, they tease the games to expect in Season 3. On both the left and right hand walls are stick figures swinging below a row of inverted triangle shapes. This could be a monkey bar type game, or perhaps an even more horrific version of Season 1's glass bridge game, where the players have to swing underneath a glass bridge. If they're even strong enough to hold up their own body weight, then some squares will collapse, sending them plunging to their death below. On another wall is a giant black and white checkers board with crucifixes dotted around, suggesting some squares are deadly. It might be a human chess or checkers game, although the number of squares doesn't correspond to a chess or checkers board. Chess strategies sometimes involve sacrificing a piece to set up an advantage, and this could tie in with the idea that Gi-hun has already decided it's acceptable to sacrifice some people for the greater good, something the frontman seemed to enjoy noticing. thing. It could also be a giant noughts and crosses game, aka tic-tac-toe, which pits the groups of X's and O's against each other, with the first group to form a line between two opposite sides, eliminating anyone else on the board. Or it could be related to an even deadlier version of the red light, green light game teased in the finale's mid-credit scene, which introduces two new killer robot dolls, indicating we're getting a new, even more brutal version of the game in season 3. The red and green lights now appear as a railway crossing signal, and I think there could either be railway lines in the room now, or squares that represent a railway line. So if a player ends up on a railway square or piece of track when the red light comes on, then the new dolls will spot the victim and mark them out for death, hence the crucifixes on the checkers board on the wall. And I reveal a lot more details about this new season 3 red light green light game in my other video. Tap here to watch it right now. Yippee-ki-yay movie lovers, thanks for enjoying Squid Game with me, and I'll see you next time.